Hello and welcome everybody to our webinar, Attracting and Retaining Talent. Shortly, I'll be introducing you to our founder and CEO, Stefan Wissenbach, but also we have special guest, Sean McCleary with us today, and I'm really delighted to have Sean with us. Sean and I have worked together for the last 2 years. In fact, Sean's been a client of Engagement Multiplier for the last 2 years. Sean is also a figurehead in the space of engagement, running his own business inside IT. And it's a fabulous, incredible business, but also very influential within the recruitment circles. So Sean will be sharing his insight a little bit later on. But before that, Stefan will be leading with a presentation. But before we lead into the presentation, I just want to cover off some housekeeping. So for those of you that are familiar with Webinar Jam, you'll notice on the top of your screen there is a red telephone box or a red box. That is, if you ever lose connection for whatever reason, then simply press the red button and that will take you straight back into today's session. Also, as mentioned on all our webinars, we're keen to make sure that this session is of most value to each and every one of you. So please use the chat box on the right-hand side to submit your questions. At the end of this session, we will be coming to Q&A, where both Sean and Stefan will be here to answer the questions that you have. But then finally, just as we move into this session, I wanted to just cover off a couple of important points. We're going to be sharing a huge amount of information throughout this webinar, seriously valuable information. So after the webinar, we're going to be emailing to all of you, not just a copy of the recording, but also a copy of the slides, but also all the information that we're sharing during today's presentation. We will also be sharing links throughout the presentation so you can get immediate access to the documents that we're discussing and that Stefan and Sean relate to during the presentation. You'll also notice that if you're an existing client of Engagement Multiplier, that these tools are available to you. So please speak to your engagement managers, your client success managers. They'll be delighted to work with you for those of you who want to take advantage of some of these additional tools. And if you're new to us, then again, just get in touch, whether it's via the chat button here or after the webinar. We'll be delighted to talk you through how you can take advantage of a number of the free tools and assets that we have available. So without further ado, please let me introduce you to our founder and CEO, Stefan Wissenbach, who will take you through how to attract and retain talent in your business. Over to you, Stefan. We can't hear you.
So now can you hear me?
We can hear you. Great.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Steve. And good afternoon, everybody, or good morning if you're joining us from the US. And so topic today is attracting and retaining talent. I have fond memories of pre-pandemic. This was the topic of my keynote that I used to, he says whimsically, travel around the world delivering in various countries. It was an important topic back then. It's an even more important topic today. We're going to explain why. It's a significant issue worldwide. I was talking to some renowned hoteliers this morning who have a significant number of vacancies and over 300,000 articles just in the last 30 days alone, if you do a Google search on this topic. So it's big. Today, we're going to talk about how to attract and retain talent. Short presentation from me. And then Sean and I are going to have a discussion. Delighted to have Sean here, both an expert and someone that's very highly regarded in the recruitment sector. And we're talking about attracting talent. So I think he's qualified, but also a client of Engagement Multipliers for some time, so very familiar with the capabilities that our technology provides. And then we'll open up for a Q&A. So during this, as any questions come to mind, as Steve mentioned, please just put those into the chat. So we're going to start with retention and move on to attraction. So I want to first of all focus on keeping the talent you have. Really important, especially as in many organizations, where there's been furloughing of employees or the challenging circumstances of the last 12 months, many employees are coming back to the workplace or re-entering this new normal as very different people. And that is fundamentally important that we all understand that and get ahead of it. And I'm going to cover today the 4 main reasons why people leave. The post-COVID era has brought a host of circumstances that employers must continue now if they want to retain their employees. You'll notice that the size of someone's pay packet isn't on this list. So I'm going to talk about each of these 4 areas, why they cause people to leave, and how you can take preventive action to change their minds. And for each problem, the good news is we have a solution. We're going to present those solutions to you today or provide you with access to them. And they are all free and absolutely with our compliments. So if you're not a client of Engagement Multiplier yet, you can have access to all of these tools without any catches or any connection. You can just use them, enjoy them, and they work. I want to make sure that no one has a sense of overwhelm here. I'm going to talk quite quickly and I'm going to cover a number of the topics quite fast. I want to make sure today is of maximum value, and you're going to receive all these resources after today's webinar. But if several of these issues apply to you, we will be providing you with tools to address them. Please don't feel overwhelmed. If more than one issue applies, then our client success managers will be more than happy to spend a bit of time with you, helping guide you through how to make this a simple and relatively painless exercise. So if we first of all look at new working practices, new ways of working. So many people prefer working from home for a whole load of reasons, and leaders do need to understand why. So first of all, flexibility. It's easier for parents to shuttle children between activities, and people find it easy to accommodate other commitments when they're working from home and not commuting. And I know I've found this. I used to go to Chicago 7 times a year, and back and forth from London at least a couple of times a week. And I look at the time that I've saved. I was talking to one of our colleagues in Chicago, and she's worked out that she saved over $3,600 a year in commuting costs and got back somewhere in the region of 720 hours. And for most of the business leaders on this call, it's important, I think, we appreciate and acknowledge that a lot of that time that people have saved not commuting, they are actually investing in putting time back into your business or to our business. So really important to understand why people prefer working from home. People have learned that they don't need to be managed in the same way as they did before. They're more productive, and they're often working with better balance. So you need to get the return to work policy right. And there's a lot of organizations at the moment that I know are really wrestling with this. And there are 2 traps here. One, you need to make sure you do absolutely learn from the pandemic and learn from what's worked, and challenge your leaders to consider the experience of the last 12 months instead of just going back to what happened before. Looking at what worked for the business, what didn't, and get some employee feedback, which will help you to eliminate any of the uncertainty that would exist. But also, I've said this to a number of business leaders and to my own team that I think we naturally fall into the rut of just thinking about the COVID experience and then the new normal. It's really important, and it's a long time ago now, but to spend a bit of time reflecting on what also worked before the pandemic, right? So people have got very used to working from home, doing Zooms, etc. And it's a long time ago in many businesses that we had that social interaction, the face-to-face team building, the things that really worked. And so, I urge you to also spend a bit of time properly reflecting, and for your team members to properly reflect on what worked before as well as what's worked during. So be prepared to hear that your people probably want more flexibility, and be thoughtful in guiding the organization's response, because you want to avoid an Apple moment. You saw how Tim got it so badly off the mark and got a public thrashing because of it. So if an organization like Apple can do that, we need to make sure that we focus on understanding what the team members want and avoid generalizations or platitudes, and just make sure you're connected to their sentiments. Very, very easy to do. We will provide you with tools to be able to do this, and I'll come on to that in a moment. So let's look at why else people leave. So people leave managers, not companies. So it's a phrase you've probably heard before. Managing through change is always hard. Managing through the pandemic was, by an order of magnitude, far, far harder. And so even seasoned managers or leaders were challenged by that really rapid, I found it very challenging. The rapid pace of change and the fact that we needed to be incredibly agile. And we all learned some new skills. And it changed the game entirely for some leaders. So we know that the pandemic affected people's mental health and stress. We know that many employees are also feeling burnt out after they've been shouldering, in many cases, higher than normal workloads, working longer hours. And we know that some managers weren't equipped to lead through that period with grace, which brings us now to today. So you need to make sure that your managers are not compelling your people to leave. It has, as this article says, that COVID has exposed a number of managers. So how do you find out which managers in your organization may be compelling people to leave? Well, we recommend, first of all, using a benchmark assessment that we're going to provide for you completely free with our technology to evaluate your organization. And that will pinpoint for you the departments where a leader may be struggling. And then you'll be able to gain further insight by assessing the leaders of those teams using our Leadership Perception Gap Survey, which assesses leaders' effectiveness. And there's going to be a link put live shortly, which will be for our 7 C's ebook, 7 C's of leadership. And that details the 7 qualities that leaders need to be displaying to be successful in today's environment. And at the end of that workbook, you'll find a scorecard. You can see a picture of it on the screen now that can be used. It's very powerful to be used in a coaching conversation with a struggling manager or leader. So I encourage you to take those steps, because understanding which of your leaders and managers are engaging and making people stay versus those that are perhaps compelling your team members to leave is critical. And if in going through this exercise you find that you get a 100-point score and there are no issues, wonderful. But better to know than to assume. So burnout. Let's talk about burnout. So many employees are feeling terrible, and we're seeing evidence of this all over the press. And over the last year, and many leaders, and I don't really blame them for this. It's been tough, but as a lot of businesses scrambled and focused on keeping the lights on, in many cases they ignored what their employees were experiencing. So we wrote a paper about this at the beginning of the year, and I'll share a link shortly that you can use to download it. But it's contributing to a huge crisis in corporate culture. And simply put, leaders that have ignored how their employees were faring are absolutely more likely to find that their people now are heading for the exits. Employees are now placing a premium on their personal well-being. Organisations that ignored that during the crisis are going to be at a disadvantage. And so one of the things that I'm going to recommend that you do, and this is once again a free resource that we're making available, which has proved to be incredibly effective by all the organisations that have run it, is to actually complete a COVID culture check. So we've created a unique survey that you can run with your team to understand the degree to which damaging forces like burnout and misalignment are present within your organisation. And then what you'll be able to do is use that feedback to take immediate and visible action that will improve the situation and show the employees that leadership is serious about improving their situation and has their well-being firmly in mind. And I'm going to come back to that in a moment. We're going to talk about caring and belonging, and this fits very nicely into that. So a link to the survey is in the ebook that you can download, and we're also going to share that with you now. So COVID culture check, just to make sure. Once again, if you get a perfect score, fantastically reassuring, but better to be certain than to make an assumption. So I mentioned belonging, I'm passionate about engagement, and I've been talking about this and writing books on it for over 25 years now. And I remember back in the early days, one of the things that we struggled with is that before employee engagement hit the headlines and became quite fashionable, which has only really been in about the last 7 or 8 years. Before that, it was often regarded as a bit of a woo-woo topic, and no one really sort of connected or really got it. It was only the really enlightened leaders that did. And what we did was we deconstructed it and made it measurable, and then created a process to improve it. So I think belonging falls into the same the same category, really. And we talk about a sense of belonging, which is now the number one employee engagement driver. So if you want engaged employees, belonging is what they all crave. Now, it was as this article shows you, this was pre-pandemic. Great article, by the way, worth a read. But what the pandemic has done is it's really accelerated this feeling, because we have been isolated and we want to feel like we belong more than ever. And because it feels nebulous, I'm going to break it down. To create belonging, there are 2 things you need to get right. Just 2 things. Get these right, and this takes care of the majority of belonging. First of all, you need to demonstrate that you care, which means understanding how employees feel. Because you can't demonstrate you care if you don't understand how your employees feel. Once again, you'll end up doing a Tim Cook and misstepping it with making an assumption. And then you also have to have, and this is something that for those of you that have heard me speak before, I'm passionate about the power of purpose, have been for decades. Still an absolute winner. Get your purpose right. I think we're going to talk a little bit about it with Sean afterwards. But you get your purpose right, it's a winner. It was really brought to the fore when we heard many years ago how the millennium generation chose purpose over money in many cases when choosing a job. So you have to give them a compelling purpose that gives your team member a why for showing up and coming to work. So what we've done is we've created simple processes that will enable you to do these 2 things. So the first one, and there'll be a link to this in the feed now, is our People Charter Workbook. I've really enjoyed working with our team and pulling this together. And once again, we've just seen some amazing results with organizations that have followed this simple structure and framework. And this will help you identify how the employees feel about various aspects of the business. And then it will put you in a really powerful position to be able to really easily take action to close the gaps that you find. And what I'm really enjoying about this is I'm seeing how easy exec teams are finding going through this exercise. They're not struggling with it at all. But it's really important that your leaders do first of all accept, and this may take some coaching in some organizations, that feelings matter, that people are struggling, and there may be issues in your organization that are impacting your team right now. So once again, don't assume no. This exercise will enable you to really quickly understand exactly what's going on. And just asking people how they feel is in itself a phenomenal goodwill deposit. It makes people feel, it makes them feel better. It's more engaging. And then organization's purpose. So on our technology platform, there are a whole series of resources to make it very easy for you to both create and refine a purpose. But we're going to be sharing with you this one pager here that will enable you to refine your existing purpose or create a new one, or create one if you don't have one, which will be critical. And that's a simple steps, very easy to do, incredibly rewarding. I encourage you, if you haven't done this, do this. It's a very, very worthwhile exercise. So final thought on retaining your people then. People leave because companies haven't learned from the last 12 months, because their manager doesn't care, or they're burned out, or because they feel that they don't belong. And the actions I've shared with you, or the simple steps that you can take, address all those points. They are absolutely straightforward, very easy to implement. I said, if you want to do all of them, speak to one of our client success managers who will spend some time giving you some free coaching on which order may be best based on your unique circumstances. So I'm going to come now on to attraction. So this has fascinated me over the last couple of months as we've really got to grips with looking at the problems that organizations are facing. And successful recruiting depends on mutual attraction. And I say this with a wry smile. I want you to think back to when you were dating. Well, for some of you, that may have been quite recent. For me, it was over 25 years ago. I'm very happily married, but I can still remember going on dates. And it's interesting how, and what astonishes me, to attract, you have to be attractive. And how fundamentally oblivious leaders are right now to how unattractive they make themselves to potential candidates. I think about how people conduct interviews, where they conduct interviews, what they do before an interview. And there's this sort of fatal assumption now, I believe, that the onus is on the prospective employee to prove to the interviewer how attractive they are as a potential hire. And trust me, those tables have now turned. People have more choice. Technology has enabled people to be able to search much more easily for a place where they can find more meaning in their work. And so what we encourage you to do is to view your recruitment process or your attraction process as if you were going on a date. You would show up looking your best, but you would also be really on the lookout to see whether the person you were spending time with was someone you wanted to see again. Same with a prospective candidate. So sell the organization ahead of the interview, right? Connect them to purpose, get them connected to the meaning, make sure that they're clear about your engagement strategy, how you act on feedback, what your values are, prove the health of your culture, and show them that you care and that you have a commitment to your team members and culture, which is tangible. That's really important. I mean, think about it. They obviously don't look that old, but dating websites predate me. They weren't around when I was when I met my wife, and so. But if I look at what my kids are doing with these dating websites, and I mean, it's just the way people meet now, and no one puts up an ugly photo. Okay, so think about what's the picture that you're portraying when you're going out to attract talent. Is it the best it could be? And so if we look at also, you can use elements of employee engagement to ensure that you're speaking to the candidate's key considerations. Very easy if you're using our platform. Remember that a paycheck alone now isn't enough. You've got to be able to convey to a candidate why they would enjoy working with you, connect them to purpose. You have to convey that there's a sense of belonging. People are looking for that. It's the number one employee engagement driver. And they should also be able to see and understand, and you must be able to show them how their role will contribute to that overall purpose and vision that you have for the business, so that they can feel that for the role that they may be stepping into has some meaning. And so how poorly organizations operate on this has been fascinating me over the last 6 weeks. And I've been working with our team, and we're midway through now creating a guide for our clients that's effectively a step-by-step process on how you can be as attractive as possible as an employer in order to attract the talent you deserve. So what I would encourage you to do, if this is of interest, you're going to be able, it's the first time we've announced this, you can pre-register here now to receive a copy of this guide when we publish it in the summer. So there'll be a link in the feed if you would like to register for that. And once you've gone through these steps, what you'll be able to do is create a very clearly articulated purpose, a people charter, and share your values in a way that will create both a practical and emotional connection for your team members. So some simple, straightforward, hopefully easily digestible practical advice and guidance to address those 4 issues that will help you to attract and retain talent. So what I'd like to do now is welcome Sean, and we can have a little bit of a conversation about that, Sean. Great to see you. Thank you for joining. I'm interested. I know you were aware broadly of the structure.
Thanks for having me on.
Great to see you. I'm interested in your thoughts. I mean, I know we discussed outline today. What would be covered? I didn't go through it in great detail with you. So I'm interested in it from 2 perspectives, really. You've got a unique vantage point. You're obviously a successful business owner. You really intuitively get engagement in the first instance, but also you are a leader in the a thought leader in the recruitment space. So it would be interesting to get your perspective for our viewers and listeners on both fronts.
Yeah, the other point I'd make, Stefan, you touched on it around the importance of building an EVP that's around a purpose. So if I think about myself and Insight in particular, we really engaged with the employees on the engagement platform, and one of the things that's come out is how important having a shared vision and a shared goal is to a business. So, for example, we went through the exercise internally, involved our people within the business, and we came up with a new purpose around empowering sustainable growth. And what that's really done is connected the people internally, but has also given us a story and a purpose to be able to bring people into the business and talk to them about interview process around the importance of that purpose. I think you mentioned it, Stefan. Look, the people have got more options than ever before. You know, I've seen that from a recruitment point of view. I think it was posted that the highest permanent vacancies advertised in May for the last 10 years. So I think the options and the barriers to entry to getting a new job in terms of the internet are there more than ever. So being able to both retain and attract talent is absolutely crucial in the current climate.
Yeah, and it has such a fundamental effect on the business's bottom line. I mean, I'm sure this doesn't apply to people on this webinar today, but I do occasionally come across business owners and leaders that don't understand the impact of the cost on the bottom line of losing talent. I remember meeting an organisation several years ago that that was replacing somewhere in the region of about 42% of its employees year on year. And when we looked at that, it ran into a 7-figure bottom line impact. So really important that organisations do understand how expensive it is to, I know conceptually we get it, but actually sit down and put some numbers around it, because the numbers are huge. Just good to understand them, because it provides a very useful framework and context then for investments that you might be considering. And this isn't a cheap push for EM. I mean, I could be upfront about it. I regard engagement multipliers as an investment, not a cost. But I would say that, wouldn't I? But actually, if you're looking at any form of investment in your business, if you can understand the money that's leaking out of the bucket day one, it's a very useful context to see what wastage you can stop.
100%. And yeah, I meet with lots of MDs and owners of businesses, and they've got a resource plan, but very rarely do they factor churn into that resource plan. And I think so. A lot of people, no doubt, on this call will be budgeting for the year. We're talking about how they want to grow as a business. But I think also, the more that you can impact the churn in the business, the easier it is to grow. I think the other thing that I would really stress around recruitment and retention being interlinked, and I really like the date analogy, Stefan. You've got to think about more and more decisions are made before people actually meet. So if you think about if you're going to buy something, I think it's something like 90% of buying decisions now are met before someone actually makes that purchase, because they're going to go online, they're going to Google it, they're going to look at the reviews, they're going to check, what's other people said about it. Oh, it's popped up in Instagram or wherever it might be. And that's the same for recruitment and businesses. More and more people are going on LinkedIn. They're not just checking the owner of the business or the manager. They're checking people that have worked there, people that have left there. They're going on Glassdoor. The candidate experience when they're going for an interview, people, yes, they don't just want to be sat in a meeting room or sat on a Zoom. They want to be meeting members of the team. And if, a lot of feedback we get is if the owner or the leaders of the business aren't telling the same story that the members of the team are, straight away there's a lack of trust built up in that process, which will impact it. So I think more and more, I think you used the phrase, Stefan, getting people bought into the purpose and the shared purpose and making sure that runs throughout the business is crucial.
Absolutely. And I on one of those earlier points that you made there, it's interesting because we do a lot of work. We have a section of our business that focuses on the hospitality sector and do a lot of work with predominantly 4- and 5-star hotels. And what's interesting is, I'm encouraging the GMs and leaders in those businesses to look, compare and contrast how they try and attract guests with how they try and attract employees, because they produce the most amazing literature on the properties, explaining what the guest experience is going to be like. They do videos. The advertising is beautifully done. And then you look at them running a job ad, which is just a few words on a page. The two situations really do not line up. And, at the moment in the hospitality industry, the guests are coming back, but a lot of the employees aren't. So it's really important to just think. And I share that analogy because for listeners today, think about how you try and attract your customers. How do you put yourself out there as a business to attract business? And then just look at that and look at how great a job you're doing there, and then compare and contrast that to how you're trying to attract employees. There'll be some interesting insight from that.
Definitely. The other point to really highlight, Stefan, to give the viewers some takeaways from today is how important the leader is in the process of decision making, both from a retention point of view and also from an attraction point of view. And you talked about demonstrating that you care. If I was to talk about the one key thing that I'm hearing from both the Power Hive, where leaders of recruitment businesses are talking, but also from MDs and owners of, we mainly work in technology and engineering spaces. It's that the people that they met in the process or the people that they work for have got that level of humility, have got care about their employees, and we went through a process at the Power Hive of talking. I think it was off the back of a Deloitte report around how businesses have gone through the phase during COVID of responding to COVID. You're in business protection mode, I suppose, and you've got to respond, and you've got to respond quickly. And for some businesses, that might have looked like furlough or whatever it might have been. Then businesses more and more are starting to recover. But now what a lot of people are wanting to know is, well, how is that business going to thrive post-COVID? And a big part of that for me is getting feedback from the people that work for that business to be able to share that feedback and use it in your plan to thrive. So, not to plug the tool, but I'm a big advocate of it. Being in a position where employment, the employment multiplier, the engagement multiplier gives you that unique standpoint of being able to get feedback but still seem strong as a leader, because you can use the employees and go back to those employees and then access that feedback and use it in your decision-making process.
No, thank you. I never get tired of plugs. I think to that point, what we're seeing, and something I've always believed, humanity is important, and it's been amplified as we've come through the pandemic. And leaders that are willing to show a bit of vulnerability, I think, are coming out strong, because no one's perfect, and leaders that are willing to accept that they may they may have the opportunity to address perhaps some personal areas where things could be a bit better, or take time to understand things that they perhaps otherwise may have missed. It is very endearing and engaging for employees to actually feel that they're working with someone that is a leader, but is willing to be vulnerable, is willing to accept feedback and then act on it. It's proven to be a very powerful approach. I'm interested, and I don't want to put you on the spot. Well, I'm going to put you on the spot, actually, so it's not fair to say that. You obviously, as the leader in your business, how did you feel about your first, if you can think back, I know it's a while ago now, your first engagement report, or even a recent engagement report where you get a lot of comments about you and your leadership. How does that make you feel? How's that made you feel? And what actions have you taken as a result?
Yeah, good question. Definitely put him on the spot there. But look, I think one of the things I would say is that if someone takes the time to actually comment and give you feedback, it shows that they care. And I think that for me, it's getting the opportunity to act on that feedback before someone's exited or shown that they care or they don't care with their feet and left the business. So of course there's a little bit of a wow, okay, is that what they really think? But I think also it's an opportunity really to, a lot of it comes down to communication and perception. So there's things that you think, okay, well, that isn't the case, but actually when you get the opportunity to explain it, and one of the best things I like about the tool is the opportunity to give that anonymous feedback and go back and ask for more information in an anonymous way so that you can act on that feedback. So a lot of the time when you get those, okay, that you've done X, Y, and Z, or I think one of the things was very minimal around flexibility was something that came up quite a lot in ours, and that we don't necessarily care about flexibility. When you actually went back and got that feedback, it was more just a communication issue than something that was a driver. So great to be able to actually get that and get people to open up to you, I would say.
Great, thank you. Well, before we open up for the Q&A, and I know Steve's going to be joining us shortly, but I just have one question that I'd like to ask you. So, and this is from your vantage point as a leader in the recruitment field, both through your own business and that network, the Power Hive. What's the one piece of, if there was one piece of advice, you could just to all of the listeners on here about something that's fundamental they need to get right when it comes to recruiting talent in a post-COVID world, what would that be?
Well, the candidate experience is key. I think you've already covered that one, Stefan. So let's say you've got the candidate experience right. I think for me is really understanding what your business stands for, understanding your EVP. Don't try and be all things to all people. There's a work from home debate going on at the moment, and I see people trying to make a blanket decision one way or the other, or interviewing a candidate and promising things because they've heard that X company down the road is offering them the same thing. Think about what the real strengths are of your business, and I think again that's something where Engagement Multiplier can help to get that feedback from the employees, and then build your EVP around that and make sure that that's unique and that stands out and that stands up and it's a true reflection. And then make sure, as you say, that the shop front of your business, your employees, your branding, whatever it might be, links into that unique EVP that genuinely does make your business stand out, I suppose.
No, great advice. Thank you. I think Steve's going to join us now and share with us some of the questions, if we've been having questions. So Steve, do we have some questions?
Yeah, we do. Absolutely. And thank you, Sean, for joining. I think everybody listening will now understand why you're a powerhouse, both in the recruitment sector, but also a leader that intuitively gets engagement based on your responses. So thank you for joining us. Good news is we have an abundance of questions, so I hope you're sat comfortably. So we're going to start diving into those now. The first one we have here is from a Kevin Lodge. I've had to reduce my staffing numbers during lockdown, and I'm concerned that that some of those that are left may also leave the business and leave us vulnerable. What's the most important thing, and you've probably shared some of this already, but what's the most important thing I should do to avoid this happening?
Do you want to go first, Sean, or shall I?
Take that, yeah, no problem. Look, I think the first thing I would say is that don't overly stress around kind of attrition and have, I see a lot of leaders that worry about, I was at X headcount and now I'm at X headcount. I think about the strength of the people that you've got, and the kind of engagement of the people that you've got and the buy-in to the people of your business. But I think, look, speak to them, get feedback, be honest with them about concerns if you've got them. Stefan talks about it. Be humble. I think going to them and saying, look, we know some people have left the business, and this is some of the feedback that we've got that we're trying to change. Really value all of you. Don't want people to leave the business, but I'm keen to get your feedback and know what we can do to improve would be a starting point. And then using that feedback, I'm sure Stefan will go on and talk about it. The key thing is don't just get the feedback and then don't do anything about it. But that would be how I would approach it.
Great advice. I think don't know the size of the organisation, but the way I'm reading it is it's probably sort of under 50 employees, so what I would do is, I completely agree with everything that Sean said. What I would do is, this is a real opportunity. We've all had a shared experience, and that's been the pandemic, and we've been forced through a lot of change, and there is a golden opportunity here to reconnect your existing and remaining team members to the purpose, what I spoke about earlier. You've also got to give them optimism for the future, and if you don't have it, then you need to get that first, because otherwise it's not authentic leadership. But where are you taking the business as we come out of this? Where do you want the business to be in 3 years? We're just launching a dedicated version of our platform for the hospitality space, and I'm very vocal on the fact that we intend to be the number one employee engagement platform in the hospitality space within 3 years. Well, the team find that engaging. I find it engaging. So you've got to get them connected to a bigger future. Make sure they're connected to purpose. And then to Sean's point, spend some time understanding where things could be improved right now, so that they feel a greater sense of belonging, connectedness, and communication. All the things that we talked about earlier that are very easy to do with those simple tools that we provided. So would love to help you with that. If you want to contact us after this webinar, we'll spend some time talking with you about how we can help you move that forward.
And one thing I think also, just to remind the audience, you might remember on the last webinar we did, I think you shared a stat, and I haven't got the quote with me, but it's something like 50% of employees right now are contemplating a new job. And I think that's quite a scary statistic. So I can understand completely why Kevin feels the way he does, because I think unfortunately, it is a reality forced upon us by the pandemic. Stefan, just on the point of improvement, I have just been reminded by our IT director, Mr. Chips, that you're still sharing the wrong slide. So you can probably stop sharing now if you would like.
Thank you. Not my unique ability. But there we go. Okay, there we go.
Very good. So next one's in from Hayley Danson. I'm looking to recruit quite a number of people in the next 6 to 12 months. This is probably one very much for you, Sean. My dream is to create a list of people just waiting to join my company and keep the recruitment process engaging, but also efficient too. Any ideas? Question mark.
Yeah, certainly. Well, look, I think, and again, this is probably where I'm going to plug all the recruiters that are out there. I think, a good partnership with an agency that understands your space, is an expert in your space, would be key. So I think I would invest some time into building some partnerships, because they are the eyes and ears and will really be able to help you in terms of, I suppose, identifying those people, but also how to attract them. I think I would probably do some research into if you haven't already, the profile of those people and what are the drivers of those people. So what I mean, for example, is if we look at recruitment as an industry, historically it's a much more of a younger demographic. Stefan touched on it earlier around the millennial generation, but yet then they're plugged into an environment where sometimes the interview process is 3, 4, 5 stages long. They start a business and it's a 2-year wait to get the next promotion, where this generation are used to that kind of on-demand, I order something off ASOS and it arrives the same day type of thing. So I do the research into the drivers of the demographic you're trying to target. And look, as I said earlier, just make your shop front engaging. Video content is something that's really attracting candidates at the moment, if LinkedIn is one of the mediums that you're going to use. But just, be honest and make sure that everything you're talking about is echoed throughout your business if they were going to look at it.
Yeah, great. I mean, that's excellent advice. I'm going to come at it from a slightly different angle. And this is something that I've been talking about over the last few weeks with some hoteliers, and that is consider the concept of open days. This is something that I did many years ago in a prior business, and what we would do is we would run adverts to the right demographic, and we weren't worried whether they were currently employed or not. We expected them to be currently employed, and the focus wasn't on a particular vacancy that we had right now. The focus was on, are you interested? Would you be interested in a career or understanding what a career in X would look like? And put on an open day where you get the opportunity for that. They come into your business. You have some engaging presentations. I'll use the analogy of a hotel. You've already got the conference space and you've paid for it. It's there. It's sat there empty. Get them in. Run a bit of an event. You've also got the kitchen staff, so you can give them some grub. You can put some food on. Showcase the business. I was talking to a silver platers the other day about this. They've got the most amazing silver plating set up in their factory. I said, well, wouldn't it be fascinating to bring people in and show them how you plate silver, and then give them something of value? So give them. We used to use the tools that we use right now, like Colby and StrengthsFinder, to give employees or these prospective candidates something that helps them understand themselves better, so they can leave from that open day better for the experience. And you don't have to be, Einstein to work this out. On that open day, when you're mixing in the coffee breaks and walking around and talking to people, you very quickly get to know which of the candidates are the ones that you think you would probably find attractive for your business. And if you've observed them in that sort of situation, very easy to subsequently follow up with them. So if you're looking to build a pipeline, you're going to be recruiting all the time. Open days can be a great way of getting your business known, and you could go out to your customers and explain that you're aggressively growing, you're looking to hire talent, you're running these open days. Here's what you're doing, and they probably will know people. They'll have family members, etc., that might be considering career changes. And right now it's great because so many people are looking for other jobs. They're thinking, I don't want to do what I was doing anymore, so they'll be on the lookout for those kinds of opportunities to try before you buy or learn more. I'm going to put this in the Attracting Talent booklet that we're sending out. I think open days have got a real place in the new normal.
But I also think, to see companies doing that, It's not about attracting people in for the open days. It's just think of the marketing that you're delivering from a business perspective. You're demonstrating as a business you're growing quickly, and your customers will go, 1 second, this is a business that we want to continue working with. These guys are really going places. Look at how they project themselves. So it's not just about the impact it's having on the internal team. Think of the external customer that's looking in at that type of activity. Really, really valuable. Next question. We've got a question here from Callum Pierce. Have you got any tips to ensure that the people charter, purpose and values document that you showed us gets lived and breathed by employees? So and it specifically says, how do we do it at EM?
Well, let me just lean forwards by my desk here, and so it's here. So it's everywhere in our business. So we have the documents are first of all physically visible, and for people that are working from home, that they have them there, and then you reference them in. You've got to keep this stuff alive, and keep everything connected to it. So we hire based on values. We also do 90-day performance reviews and midpoint check-ins with our team members. Our values and our employees' ability to display those values are referenced at those. We connect consistently back to purpose. We make sure that in all of our strategic decision making, purpose sits at the very core of what we do. When we're communicating with team members, we're referencing purpose. And then when it comes to, and particularly now, our people charter is relatively new. I mean, this is something that we created as a fundamental requirement as a result of the pandemic. It was necessary before. Wish I'd have seen it, but the pandemic really brought it to the fore. And so we will be doing the same there. That will be something we're just about to run. In fact, this is good, walking the talk. This week, we are running an on-demand using our platform to our entire organisation to get them to score how well we're doing against the statements that we have on how we think our employees how we want our employees to feel working at Engagement Multiplier. So if you take, I feel safe in the workplace, as we want them to feel safe, they'll be able to score from strongly agree through to strongly disagree. So we're eating our own cooking. We will actually reference how we're doing against both our purpose, our values, and the people charter on an ongoing basis, and keep it front of mind. Very, very powerful. And then you'll find that team members will start interacting with each other, and they'll use those as a guideline and a framework. So, well, that's not consistent with our value of authenticity. So why would we do that? So it's actually quite easy. You just got to make it part of your DNA and your operating system.
I think as well, just to expand on that, being one of your employees and going through that review process every 90 days. In fact, we do them together, and the mid check-ins. What I love about the values bit is that you're not scoring me on the values, although you have a perception on that. I actually every 90 days get to score myself on how I think I'm performing against those values. And that is what makes it embed within your thinking, because you think, actually, could I improve in those areas? And it becomes a bit of a self-checker, almost a self-coaching piece that you get to do, very light coaching piece you get to do on your own performance. Would you like to add anything to that? Because I know you've done some work yourself, Sean, in terms of obviously the purpose and the values within your business. Was there anything you'd like to expand on?
No, I think as Stefan says, I think a lot of people see a purpose or values as something they do and then it's put up on a wall and, kind of not spoken about again. I think the key part is continually involving your employees in it. So taking them through the journey originally, if I look at the experience we had, it was actually my employees who came up with the idea for the purpose and what they wanted it to say and what and I suppose what they felt would actually resonate with their customers. But then what we haven't done yet, which is a great idea, is use the platform, I suppose, to get more kind of bespoke feedback. They're obviously rating the purpose every 90 days, but yeah, it'd be great to actually just add some bespoke questions, I'm guessing, to get feedback and how that can be continually improved.
Great. Next question, and you're going to like this one. This is from Andy Peterson. Stefan, I remember hearing you speak at an event just before lockdown, talking about engagement being an energy source that helps attract and retain staff. Do you still feel that this is the same?
Absolutely. Well, more than ever, I sort of, engagement as an energy source that transforms businesses, and how you transform businesses is that you make sure that you have great people. It's all about the people, right? Yeah. So you not only want to keep the great people you have, that you want to attract more great people. So absolutely, more than ever, my passion for engagement hasn't diminished one iota. What's been fascinating for me is that how this sense of belonging has become such a powerful force because we've been forced into isolation and lockdown, and it's just amplified, I think, for most people as humans. We're tribal. I mean, I remember speaking on a prior webinar about one of the worst forms of punishment many years ago was to be banished, right? Well, isolated. Well, we've all been banished, haven't we? We've all been isolated for quite a long period of time now. And so that innate sense to want to be part of a community and part of something is part of us. And so organizations that get that will find it much easier to engage their employees, but absolutely engagement is still an energy source.
Super. Well, look, we're just about to run out of time. We're going up close to the hour. So I've got one more question. We've got loads more questions here. And for those of you that we haven't responded to yet, we'll be sure to pick these up offline and we will come back to you personally. But one here from Dave Thatcher, and it says, would you share your latest engagement results with a prospective candidate, even if it contains negative feedback?
The answer is yes, but you need to be judicious in what's shared because they need the right context, right? So I have loads of our clients will use their engagement reports and scores as a way of showing candidates that they measure and improve engagement, and that every employee in that business has a vote, has a voice. We have once again recently heard someone reference our platform as democratically transformative because the most junior members' vote carries the same weight as the CEO's, and so what we're advocating is show prospective employees that you have a process that's more important than going into the nitty-gritty about who said what. If you're using our platform, you'll know that there's a summary page where you can show the score trending over time and give them a flavour of what's involved. They don't need to, at that point in the interview process or the courtship process, understand exactly who said what in the last survey. So I would be judicious in what you share, but connect them to the concept and give them some stories about. Be authentic. Give them some stories about things that show some humility, that meant that you've made positive changes as a result of employee feedback where things weren't working and you fixed them, because that's what they will find energizing.
I think that's an interesting point, and I'll come to you, Sean, as well, because if you're sharing somebody a negative report and they challenge you and say, well, what have you done with it? And you say nothing. Well, again, that paints a picture where if you can show them a negative report and say, well, actually, it's quite interesting. Look, this is what we received in our last survey, but actually since then, this is what we've been able to do. I think actually, even though the report's negative, that shows a real positive and demonstrates the type of organizer, because there's no business out there that's perfect. We've got lots and lots, hundreds and hundreds of businesses all over the world using our platform. Never yet met a business that's perfect, but it demonstrates that we all want to make improvements and we're striving for that next level of excellence. Anything to add to that, Sean?
No, look, I think the key part you mentioned is that no business is perfect, and Stefan talks about having a goal and working towards it. I think people just want to come on the journey, be that prospective candidates, be that people that's in your organisation. If you can plot, look, we're here on the journey, this is where we're going to get to, and these are the things that we're going to do on the way to get there, and you can be part of that, then I think that's a real compelling reason to join or stay with the business.
Fantastic. Well, look, I'll round out the session. Again, apologies to those we haven't yet managed to get to in terms of the questions. We will come back to you individually responding to those. And Sean, there's a couple here which are directed straight to you, so I'll make sure they're shared with you as well. In terms of next steps, for those of you that are current clients, if you're interested in anything that we've covered off today, do get in touch with us, speak to your customer success managers. They'll be delighted to give you access to the tools, but also to show you how to get these surveys set up. For those of you that are new to us, there's a link here and we will share it not just on this webinar, but separately afterwards. You can register with us for free. You can get access to all our tools and collateral, or even if it's just to have a conversation with us to understand more, let us know. But before we finish out, any final comments from you, Stefan, or Sean, to round out today's session?
Well, first of all, thank you, Sean. I really appreciate you taking the time to share your insights with us, and it's a pleasure working with you. You're a great example of a business that gets it. So really appreciate your time today. Thank you. And to everyone that's here, thanks for taking the time out. I mean, I always watch the audience numbers with an eagle eye, and you've all stayed, so I'm flattered, and I hope you found it to be valuable and useful. We want to be helpful in these challenging times. I do really encourage you to please, anything that resonated with you today, please take advantage of these capabilities and resources that we're providing. We're a business that gives away what we do for free. It doesn't need selling. If you try it for free and you like it, then whether or not you decide to continue on the journey with us is entirely up to you. And 4 out of 5 companies that try what we do end up joining us. So we'd love you to try the technology if you haven't already. And if you're an existing client, thank you for being on this journey with us. And I wish you all the success in attracting and retaining talent, and thinking about the dating process and how you make yourself attractive to prospective candidates in the new normal.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
Thanks, guys.